Hi, Pat the podcast editor here. What's more important, gratitude or ambition? Well, today, Dan and Lloyd look to find out. But more importantly, they'll take a look at the benefits of striking a balance between the two.
Because I don't want this to just be an episode where like, oh, we're so grateful and we're so ambitious. It's like, we've been on this journey and we still are. Some of those things will help you and these stories will help you.
Yeah. Whether it's ambition or gratitude you're struggling with, you'll hear about practical steps that anyone can take, starting today, to help strike that balance and furthering that, improve your happiness.
If you want to be more ambitious, setting goals and achieving them, even in a small way, is a way of making you more ambitious.
Right, let's get stuck in. This is episode 89 of the Business Anchors podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors podcast. This jingle is slightly too long. This jingle is slightly too long.
This is a big question, Lloyd. How can you be grateful for what you have, but stay ambitious?
Oh, I don't know, Dan.
This is going to be a good episode.
Thank you for listening. No, this is something I've been reflecting on a lot recently. So I've been reflecting a lot on what makes me happy and that sort of thing, and to continue to try and improve those things and the important stuff in life. And this is something I identified as being two really important things: being able to be grateful and kind of feeling content, but also being ambitious. And it's two things that often people don't manage to do together, and often I haven't managed to do together. And I think it's a massive opportunity if we can manage those two things effectively.
And for those who are listening thinking, oh, this is a fluffy episode, I'm going to skip it, I've actually got some really practical, actionable things you can do to feel grateful and stay ambitious. And Lloyd's just going to be talking about fluffy, like, oh, yeah.
So if you're concerned this will be rubbish because some of it will include me talking, don't worry, because Dan is also talking, and you'll enjoy that.
We did ask the listeners last week to tell us if they like you being on the podcast, or if they like the solo episodes.
We haven't heard yet, because last week was 5 minutes ago in the recording world. But the consequences may be embarrassing for me.
So Lloyd, would you say you're grateful? Do you practice gratefulness? Is that even a thing?
Gratitude.
Oh, wow.
Dan, I often practice gratefulness while I'm feeling the emotion of entertainment. I think personally I have massive improvements that need to be made with feeling gratefulness and gratitude. But I think I think I'm pretty good at it. But I think I guess when I was thinking about this, I feel like the feeling now that I've developed some things and I really focus on gratitude, and I kind of have gratitude and like feeling content in the same, well, in my mind, that's kind of how I feel of it. Think of it. Really brings me a lot of happiness. And sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to ask, why would, we're talking about being grateful.
Yeah.
Why would people even want that? Like, listeners who will action some of the stuff we talk about in this episode, what's good about being grateful? Well, why don't you carry on with what you're doing?
From my personal perspective, stopping and thinking, actively putting things in place to think how grateful you are and how lucky you are, to put it simply, just makes you a lot happier. That is, like, for me, it's as simple as that, of feeling grateful. That's what I get from it.
Can I tell you why I think that's the case?
Yeah, okay.
So, it comes back to Mo Gaudat, the happiness expert guy. We've done an episode on him before. His happiness equation, which is the classic happiness is expectation minus reality.
Yeah.
I feel like taking action to show gratitude reduces that gap on a daily basis. So rather than thinking, oh, I wish I had a Ferrari and I wish I had this, you're like, I've got food and water and I've got a healthy family. I'm so grateful for that. And it like reduces that like if you expect if you lower your expectations in a way and feel grateful for the things that you've got, but again, at the same time, that's kind of going against the thing of being ambitious.
That's the challenge we're talking about. So exactly this, I think this is why this is interesting. So you're saying, in reality, lower your expectations in some ways to make sure that you are grateful for what you have. You've got amazing things in your life. No matter who you are, there are a level of amazing things you have in your life, I'm sure. But it's balancing that. That's the whole point of this episode, I think, of if you just say lower your expectations, we're then saying, what, we're not gonna aim to ever do anything better. We're not going to be ambitious. We're not going to have goals to work towards. I think that's the interesting point. And I think this is, so a lot of people, they either have a level of gratitude and they feel content, they feel happy with their lives, and that's a really positive thing. But they then lack the ambition because they're feeling so happy and content. Why would I have a motivational drive to improve things? Like, I feel so grateful for what I have and content in this. Or the opposite, people aren't grateful for what they have. They just can't see that what they have is good enough. And that drives them to be ultra ambitious. They're always aiming for something bigger and better, which can be a really positive thing to improve elements of your life. But they never get that positive feeling of feeling happy where they are because they're always aiming to improve and being ambitious.
So what's more important, gratitude or ambition?
I wouldn't say personally there's a more important thing. I think the importance is learning how you can have both of those things.
Okay, how can you have both of those things? This is the big question that we want answering.
Yeah. So I guess, so on the gratitude side, I think to be truly grateful, a big thing for me is empathy. And I've spoken about empathy being a big part of my life and so important in previous episodes. But understanding, if you can truly understand the lives of others, you can see the amazing positive things that you have in your life, and be really grateful for those. Right. Can I just give you a few things that will help us feel grateful now using empathy?
Okay, go on, let's do this.
Okay. If you have more than £3,195,
what do you mean? Just in the bank or
in any way?
Okay.
If you have a car that's worth that, if you have savings,
3,000. How much? Sorry, 3,000.
£3,195.
Yeah.
You are richer than half of the world.
Wow.
So if, like I'm saying, if you own a car that is worth £3,500, you are financially better off than half of the world.
That's
even
crazy.
if you don't own a home, if you don't own anything else, if you've got £1,000 in the bank and you've got a Lego collection worth £2,500, you're richer than. So, and I know a lot of people won't have that, but I'm just thinking some people have financially all these lovely things and money and savings, and they feel like they're not good enough when actually, if you compare yourself to every human, you are in a really good position a lot of the time.
You've got more.
Yeah, if you're in a country that's at peace and you're free to do what you want to do, you're extremely lucky. We are.
What percentage are you better?
I don't have a percentage.
Okay,
but like most of the listeners to this podcast are listening from a country that and there's recent things in the news about Russia and Ukraine. I think that has brought it to home for a lot of people how fortunate we are. We have these things of like, but I didn't get that promotion that I was hoping for. Stephen got it. And you think like, I'm in such a terrible situation. I think looking at the bigger picture and realizing there's another opportunity in 6 months for that and I can work towards it, but I'm extremely lucky. If you've got any friends, if you've got any sort of support network, a lot of people don't have that. And when I was working with the homeless a couple of years ago, that was the major difference. Like a lot of them had the same sort of things as me in their life, other than they no longer had any friends or family, and that was the difference. And I think just realizing, even if you've got, I don't have a massive family, but I've got a really good relationship with my sister, or like, my family's quite small, but I've got these two friends I can really rely on. I think if you're focusing on those things, it's really good to think about that sometimes, and you think like, bloody hell, yeah, A lot of people don't have that, and I'm really fortunate.
So how can you? So I get all that. How can you stay grateful whilst also being ambitious, though? What, like, how does it work?
Yeah, I think this is the challenge. So I think focusing on that gratitude, but then not doing what I did throughout my 20s and just thought, I am so, which is brilliant, by the way. If you're in this position, it's still a good position to be in. I am so happy. And like, so I just don't really need to do anything. I'll try and I'm just really happy. I think now I've like unlocked a cheat code of a new level of happiness. If you can be grateful, but then still set yourself goals to achieve new things, it like unlocks a whole new level of happiness.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. So you're at the stage where you got to like, oh yeah, I feel really grateful, but then not allowing it to make you think, well, I'll just stay where I am. Going, oh, even though I'm so happy and grateful, I'm now going to set some goals. And they could be hugely ambitious goals of growing a business that's worth £50 million or raising £2 million for charity. Or your goals could be, I want to improve my relationship with my brother, or I want to get at least 8 hours sleep a night. And setting those goals and working towards them, then you get this hugely more positive feeling than you had of just being grateful. And you get the science behind it of setting goals and working towards them, even if you're an overall happy person. Have you heard, doing a to-do list, you get a dopamine hit when your brain anticipates a reward. You get a dopamine hit, which makes you feel good and makes you feel happy.
Anticipates a reward.
Yeah.
Right.
And your brain sees ticking off a thing from your to-do list or a goal you've set as a reward. And it likes that. So if you've got a massive goal, you break it down into chunks, and then well, each day I need to stay under 2,000 calories in my diet, or each day I need to make sure I contact 3 new people to make relationships for my business, whatever it is, whatever goal it is in or outside of your business. And then when you tick those each day, have a thing, you go, yeah, you get this hit every single day, every single thing. There's a level where it says it gives you that dopamine hit. And you have that in addition to the positive feelings you get from being grateful and gratitude.
So what was your switch? Because I remember Lloyd in his early 20s, who was very happy, but a bit of a coaster. Not like I class you now as very ambitious and like that kind of stuff. What was the switch? Because I think there might be some listeners who might think, I'm just happy doing what I'm doing. So you're saying you unlock this new thing of like, oh, if you did that and you were ambitious as well, it's like this new thing. What switched in your head?
For me personally, it was probably feeling that even though I was happy, this could get deep, I suppose, but even though I was happy, I felt like I needed to prove to you and to our dad that I could achieve things if I wanted to. That's the reality of it. Like, I was just happy, and I knew, and I would say to Dad and stuff, I'd say, oh yeah, if I wanted to do that, I could. And he was very supportive, like, yeah, but I could see that he didn't believe it.
But do you get the logic of if
I completely get the logic.
Someone just says, yeah.
And then I think I had that thing of, well, I want to make my family proud of me. And even if I'm feeling happy in my head, if they are kind of, and it was through all of my school and everything, it was always, he's got so much potential if he tried at anything. And so, yeah, I think eventually I kind of thought, well, I want people to believe what I feel in my head, that I can do these things. So I started actually trying. Yeah. And then unlocked this thing of,
oh wow, both. You can win both.
That feels even better when you're grateful and content in your life and have that good feeling.
But you're getting the dopamine hits of...
You're also getting the dopamine hits of achieving a goal and being ambitious. And then I realised, like, oh, that's even better than when I was just really happy and grateful, content for what I had in my life. Yeah. So that's where it came from for me, I think, and what made me try it and then realised, oh, shit, this is even better.
So what can I share something that I think with gratitude and ambition? I think if someone's listening, because I think there's some people listening who have neither, or who are like would say, we just talked about you. You had all the gratitude and were happy,
Yeah.
but you weren't that ambitious. I think there's some people who are listening who are thinking, I want to improve both. What should I do? And I've recently listened to a few really good podcasts and stuff and learned some stuff.
Great.
So there's a really good podcast I discovered called Sean Spooner's podcast, Life and Lessons.
Is that a real name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm not just making this up, Lloyd. It's a really interesting podcast. I actually discovered him because he did an interview with Chris Williamson, who has Modern Wisdom podcast. This is another really good podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about this gratitude journaling. And previously, I've thought it to be very fluffy and like, oh yeah, sure, do that. But he talked through this thing of every day he made this rule where he would have to write in the notes on his phone something he was grateful for. And I also heard this and I read this in Mo Gaudat's book about happiness, Soul for Happy, where he talks about this activity called 3 Good Things, where throughout the day you pick 3 good things that you're grateful for, and at the end you look at it and it just made complete sense. Because on Sean Spooner's podcast, he mentioned when he started doing this, he was like, oh, I've got to find something grateful, and it was just tedious. Eventually he noticed himself throughout the day actually looking for things he was grateful for, and it made him feel better because he was actively like, oh, us sitting here recording this podcast, wow, this is a really cool set that the team have built, that we've enabled them to build by hiring them. And like you can just, if you sit down for a second and start to think about things, you can show more gratitude. So I think if you're someone who wants to be more grateful, then there's certain activities you can do and things you can do, like that journaling, and every day making yourself do that.
As a first step, I used to do something when I wasn't feeling as happy for a short period of time. I had got into a routine. I remember this vividly because it was in my old house, and I don't think it was Sean Spooner, but it's a similar thing, or Mo Gaudat, but similar thing. I'd get up, I'd make my cup of green tea, and I'd look out the window, and I'd think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. This was like before anyone in the house got up, so you kind of got your own time.
First thing.
And then I think of 3 things I wanted to achieve that day. And none of them had to be hugely big things, but I'd, it might, wake up and like, oh, I'm really grateful that my son is really enjoying his karate that I took him to yesterday. That's brilliant. Like, it's so cool to see. Yeah. I'm really grateful that today I'm going to work and I've got a job that I genuinely like enjoy. Yeah. Most people would love to be doing what I'm doing. And then like, really grateful I've got this lovely house. And each day there could be things that are repeated from the day before, whatever, but it's amazing how just it making your brain think of those things just for a moment does really boost you. It sounds too fluffy and like, oh yeah, is that going to have effect? But it genuinely does.
I think you've moved on to the thing that I was going to talk about, which is the ambition side.
Oh, sorry.
No, but that's good. Like, you just said you broke up, so you thought of 3 things you were grateful for, which is in terms of what I've been listening and reading about is one step you can take. Actively schedule time to think of or write them down or whatever you want to do. There's other ones I've seen where it's like a grateful jar where you write on a bit of paper and put it in a jar, and whatever the way you want to do it, just actually think about it.
Do something.
The other side, the ambition side, you hit on this with your thing where you said set 3 goals for the day. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and setting goals and achieving them, even in a small way, is a way of making you more ambitious. Because once you get a taste of the feeling of setting a goal and achieving it, no matter how small. So my goal today is to do 20 minutes exercise, or to do this piece of work and get it done. Whatever, not massive goals. You then get a flavor of what it's like to actually achieve them, and you get that dopamine hit or whatever it is that you're like, oh, that was good. And then you kind of get addicted to it, and you're like, I want more of that. And you want a bigger, better dopamine hit. So you think, right, the next thing I want to achieve. And I've, from a sales perspective, as the business has grown, our first sale, when someone agreed to spend £100 with us, we were jumping around like, oh my God, someone will actually pay us £100 for our time. And now, we've won significantly bigger deals, and each time it's stepped up a bit, and you're looking for that bigger hit, and So yeah, I think as a starting point, if you want to be more ambitious, start by setting small daily goals. And as you start to achieve those, then start to set bigger ones. And it will be like a stepping stone effect. And eventually you'll be setting, like us now, we've got to a stage where we're setting a 10-year goal or 2030 plan that we want to achieve, which is very ambitious.
Interestingly, I think for me, I was quite good at the grateful and feeling gratitude and content side for a long period of my life, and needed to work on the ambition. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like perhaps you've always been quite good at the ambitious side.
Yeah.
And in earlier years, I would say, from my perspective, weren't as good at the gratitude side. So how do you think? Well, firstly, is that true?
Yeah.
And why or how do you think that's happened? Have you thought about that?
So I think in my early days, you're exactly right. Very ambitious, but and I think I had the thing where my expectations, I wanted the Ferrari and I wanted a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the end goal is to have a massive house and a really nice car and all that kind of stuff. And I guess as I've gone through this journey and had a son and that kind of thing and built a family, my priority, I still do, like I would say I'm a lot more than you on that side of things, want more stuff, whereas you're very content. But I think my priorities kind of shifted a bit. And now I'm more like, I want to build a wicked life for my family. And like a Ferrari isn't really going to help them much. Whereas, renovating my house for them, which I'm currently doing, is more of a thing that I'd be wanting to spend money on. I'm trying to think of what was the shift. I think it probably was when Brody, my son, was born. And I think that's quite a big life change. So it's a bit of a shock to the system. And you're suddenly like, oh, there's another person I need to look after. So the selfish thing of, I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to buy myself this and I'm going to get that, it sort of gets dulled down a bit.
Big time for reflection on how you're feeling and what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing, which was a big shift for me, was the feeling, and very fortunate feeling, of getting in a point in my life where I felt comfortable in the sense of it wasn't getting to the end of the month thinking, how am I going to pay for that? Or what if my car breaks down? And again, I know I'm totally grateful for being able to get in that position, but feeling like that, I felt was the feeling of not being stressed about that side of things was better than buying something really nice that I want and then having the stress as well. Does that make sense? That's really weird.
Well, I think that is being, you're talking about being grateful of your position of being kind of comfortable financially, as in you're not worrying, can I put food on the table and that sort of thing. Feeling that gratitude and for what you already have, which I think is a matter, rather than just purely focus on your goals, like, because a lot of people, and you could just ignore that stuff. Like, of course I'm managing to do well enough. I had those goals years ago. Yeah. Like, I'm aiming for this, and this. But I think, good to reflect on that. Like, there's great things going on.
But now where I'm at, now I feel like I'm there. I want both now. So I'm now feel super ambitious to not just get a Ferrari or whatever, but to build the business and build this thing and be successful in the sense of building something that has a really positive, we've just been developing our positive impact plan, positive impact on our employees' lives, the people around us, and me and my family and you, and I feel super, but now I feel in that comfortable place. Now it's like full steam ahead for taking things to the next level. But it's taken shitloads of time to get here, so it's not just a thing that's happened overnight. It's
really interesting that for both of us, obviously this whole episode is talking about how we feel. Being able to be grateful and ambitious at the same time is such an amazing thing to get to if you can. And it's interesting, I feel we both had one side of that, and we've had to learn how to get the other one over time. I think a lot of people will be in the same position. People will either be listening like you, thinking, I'm always like young Dan, aiming for the next thing, but not thinking about how lucky I am. Or they're like me, thinking, I'm quite happy with what's going on, but I'm not pushing myself to achieve bigger things. So hopefully it's a bit of a one of those wake up calls of like, give the other side a go and see if you can improve your happiness and how you're feeling through that. And if you're not, like you said earlier, if you don't have either, make a start with one of them. Either start the kind of goal setting and ticking that thing of each day and getting that dopamine hit of achieving something, or the exercise of gratitude. I think it'd be a good, if you're thinking I don't do well with either of these things, start with one of them and improve it. And then at some point when you think, okay, now I'm feeling really grateful for everything, I'm getting that happiness from being grateful. Now I can go on to the ambition thing of what goals do I want to achieve? So yeah, really interesting how different people have different things naturally. And yeah, interesting that we had to go from either side and learn the other half of it.
And I'm hoping people listening to this will get value from, maybe because they're in a position we were in or are in, and because I don't want this to just be an episode where like, oh, we're so grateful and we're so ambitious. It's like we've been on this journey and we still are and still got a long way to go. But there's certain things that we've done that have helped, and hopefully anchors, some of those things will help you and these stories will help you. Yeah.
Let us know. A bit of a different episode today. That was interesting. Well, for me. Sorry if it wasn't for you. But yeah, a bit different. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. And we'll be back, or just Dan, depending on your feedback, for the next episode. Really good chat, Dan. Thank you. That was.
See you next week.
Nice. See you next week.
See you next Tuesday.
Oh, God. It's Thursdays.
See you next Thursday.
See you next Thursday.